Everyone, in this video, I will walk you through the basics of Python. You will learn what variables are, explore the different data types that Python offers, and understand how to display output and accept input from the users. We will also cover how to use operators and form expressions, how to write conditional statements using if else, elif, and how to work with loops like for and while. To top it off, we will dive into working with strings, explore commonly used string functions. By the end of this video, you will be well versed in Python fundamentals and ready to take your skills to the next level. So let's get started. Before we dive into learning Python, let's first set up Python on your local machine. If you are using Windows, open your browser and go to python.org/downloads or simply search for Download Python on Google. Click the link to visit the official Python page. You will see a button that says Download Python. Click on it and the Python installer will begin downloading. For Windows user, it will download an exe file, and for Mac user, it will download a .pkg file. Once the download is complete, double-click the installer to begin the setup. On Windows, before clicking Install Now, make sure to check the box that says Add python.exe to path. This step is very important as it ensures Python runs smoothly from the command line. After that, follow the on-screen instructions to finish the installation. For Mac users, just double-click the installer and follow the setup prompts. Once Python is installed, we will move on to installing Visual Studio Code. Now that Python is installed on your local machine, let's move on to installing Visual Studio Code, our code editor for writing Python programs. To get started, open your browser and go to code.visualstudio.com/download. Once the page loads, if you are using Windows, click on Windows icon. If you are on a Mac, click on the Mac icon. This will start downloading the appropriate installer for your system. When the download is complete, double-click the installer to begin setup. For Windows user, double-click the .exe file. Accept the license agreement and click Next. Choose your destination folder and click Next again. Now, you will see a screen for additional tasks. Make sure to check the box that says Add to Path. This is important. Once done, click Next and then click on Install. The installation will take a few moments. Once done, click Finish and launch Visual Studio Code. And for Mac user, clicking the download button will give you a zip file. After it is downloaded, unzip it and then double-click the Visual Studio Code icon to open it. Once Visual Studio Code is installed and running, the next step is to install the Python extension inside it. Now that the Visual Studio Code is up and running, let's install the Python extension. With the Visual Studio Code open, click on the Extension tab on the left sidebar. In the search bar at the top, type Python. And from the search results, look for the extension published by Microsoft. Click on it, then click on Install button. In my case, the extension is already installed, so you won't be able to see the install button here on my screen. But on your system, you should see it clearly. Just click to install. Once that is done, there is another extension I recommend, and that is AutoPep8. You will see an extension from Microsoft with that name. If you don't see it right away, just type AutoPep8 in the search bar and press enter. You will see an extension from the Microsoft with that name. AutoPep8 is a code formatting extension that helps keep your code clean and well structured. This one is optional, but I highly recommend installing it. It makes coding much easier and more professional. And that's it. Once the extensions are installed, we are ready to write and execute our first Python program. Now, let's create our first Python program. To begin, I have already created a folder on my machine called demo. In the Visual Studio Code, click on Explorer icon on the left hand side. Then click on Open Folder. You will be prompted to select a folder from your system. Choose the demo folder that you just created and click on Add. The demo folder is now added to your workspace. Next, we will create a Python file. Select the demo folder and click on the plus icon that says New File. This will create a placeholder to enter the file name. Type demo.py and press enter. The .py extension tells Python that this is a Python script, so make sure to include it when you are creating your file. Now that the file is created, let's write our first line of code. Just type print within round brackets, within double quotes, hello world. This is a simple Python statement that will display the text hello world on the screen. Save the file by pressing Ctrl S on Windows or Command S on Mac. Now let's run the program. There are a couple of ways to do this. Right click anywhere in the file and choose Run Python file in terminal. This will execute the file and you should see Hello World printed in the terminal at the bottom. Another way to execute the file is to click the Run button at the top right corner of the VS Code window. Just click on it and the code will execute in the terminal. And that's it. We have just written and run our first Python program. Now that Python and Visual Studio Code are set up and you are able to run basic Python code on your machine, let's dive deeper into learning Python programming step by step. I have opened a Visual Studio Code. First, I will click on Open Folder and select the folder I have created on my computer named Python Tutorial. Once selected, the folder appears in the left panel. Next, I will add a new folder within it. Let's call it Python Basics. Now, I will create a new Python file inside this folder. You can right click and select new file or keep the folder selected and click on the new file icon. Let's name it 01 underscore variables.py. It is important to use the .py extension so that Python recognizes it as a Python file. Without .py, it would be just treated as a plain text. Now that the file is ready, let's write some code. So what exactly are variables? A variable in Python is used to store a value that we can reuse later in the program. Here is an example. Name equals to Keith. Here, name is a variable and Keith is a value assigned to it using the equal to assignment operator. Let's create another variable. Age equals to 45. Now, age is a variable storing the number 45. We can also store a single character or string in another variable. And let's say I want to store a value m in the gender. To do that, I'll simply type gender equals to m and press enter. Now we have three variables: name storing Keith, variable name age storing 45, and gender storing value m. Now let's understand data types. Python supports several built-in data types. The basic one includes int for whole numbers like 10, minus 3, 0. And then we have str, that is string data type. And then we have float for decimal values like 10.5, 3.14, and so on. And then we have Boolean data type for storing Boolean values like true or false. Here are some examples. Let's say I want to store a Boolean value true to a variable flag. So what I'll do is I'll type flag equals to true. Now in this case, a Boolean value true is stored in the variable flag. Now let's say I want to store a float value 10.5 to a variable temperature. To do that, I can simply type temperature equals to 10.5. It is important to note here that Python, it automatically assigns the correct data type based on the value we assign. Now, let's quickly talk about comments in Python. To add a comment in Python, we can simply use the hash symbol at the beginning of the line. For example, hash, this is a comment. Comments are not executed, they are just there to explain the code. They help improve readability and are a great habit, especially in longer projects. Now, let's talk about displaying output. To display something on the screen, we make use of the print function. For example, print within double quotes, this is a text. If you run this file, you will see the message printed in the terminal. You can also print variable values. For example, print age. And if I run this code, it should display value of variable age on the screen. Now let's try to understand how to accept users input and store it in a variable. In order to do that, we make use of input function. Let's write a simple code for that. What I'll do is I'll type name equals to input, and within double quotes enter your name. This line shows a prompt and stores the user's response in a variable name. By default, input returns a string. Let's execute this line of code. If you see here, this code is prompting me to enter a name. Now let's say I type Ben and press enter. This value will be stored in the variable name. So let's do one thing and let's try to print the value of name after this line of code. I'll run the code again, and now it is asking me to enter the name. I'll type the name Ben, and if you see, that value got displayed again with the help of this print statement. So by default, input returns a string. If you want to accept a number, you'll have to convert it into integer. And let's try it out. Let's accept age from the user and store it in a variable named age. So what I'll do is I'll type age equals to input. I prompt user to enter the age, enter your age. Now, when this line of code is executed, it will accept age from the user and it will store in the variable as string. Okay, so let's check it out. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll print type of age. It should display a string as the data type. So what I'll do is I'll comment these two lines of code because I do not want it right now. So I'll run this script. If you see here, it is asking me to enter the age. Let's say I type 65 and press enter. It says that this type of this variable is string. Okay, now what I want to do, right? I want to convert this input value to integer. To do that, I'll make use of typecasting. It is very simple. So what I need to do is I need to go here and type int and bring everything within the round brackets. Now what the code will do is whenever it accepts the input, the string value will be passed to this function and this will convert that string value to integer and it will assign that integer value back to the variable age. Okay, now if I run this code, now let's say I type 45 and press enter. This line of code will correctly display that the type of age is integer, and this ensures that age is stored as an integer. So far, we have learned how to create variables and assign values, the different basic data types in Python, how to comment your code, how to display output using print statement, and how to accept and process user inputs. In the next section, we will explore operators and expressions and see how we can perform calculations using Python. And if you are getting value out of this video, click on like and subscribe to this channel. Let's move ahead. In this section, we will talk about operators and expressions in Python. Let's get started. So what exactly are operators? Operators are symbols that perform operations on variables and values. Let me create a new file first. I will name it as 02 underscore operators.py. We'll write all our examples inside this file. Python supports several arithmetic operators. These are used to perform basic arithmetic operations like plus for addition, then we have minus for subtraction, star for asterisk, then we have slash for division. This is for floor division, which I'll be talking more about it in detail. And then we have a percentage sign, which is for modulo division, which will return the remainder of the division operation. So let's get started by creating two variables. Let's say a equals to 10, and then I'll create one more variable named b, and I'll assign value 3 to it. Now let's see how these operators work. Let's first understand the addition operator. I'll type print a plus b is equal to a plus b. Here, what we are doing is we are using making use of plus operator to perform addition of a and b. This should output value 15. Value 13. Let's execute this code. If you see here, this displayed value 13 correctly. You can also add a literal value directly. So instead of performing addition operation on two variables, I can also do a plus 5. In this case, it should display value 15. 10 plus 5, I should display value 15. Let's run it. Yeah, if you see here, this line of code correctly displayed value 15 on the output screen. Then we have and then we have subtraction. Let's simply copy this line of code. A minus b, I'll do a minus b. I'll just change it back to a plus b. Okay. Now, if you see here, a minus b, we are using subtraction operator on variables a and b. So a minus b will perform 10 minus 3, which should display value 7 on the output screen. So if I run this code, if you see here, it displayed value 7 correctly. Now let's try multiplication a asterisk b. I will change it. So it should do the multiplication of a and b. If you see here, it displayed a value 30 correctly. So this is like 10 multiplied by 3 and it displayed value 30 on the output screen. Now let's try the division operation. A divided by b, it should display 10 divided by 3. If you see here, it correctly displayed the value of the output of the division operation. So it's 3.3333. So that's how this division operator works. And now let's understand the floor division. Okay, so pay proper attention here. I'll do print a slash slash b equals to a slash slash b. Now what I'm doing here is I'm doing the floor division of a by b. So in this case, right, what happens is when we do a float division by b, it will return only the whole number part, discarding the decimal. So when we do a divided by b, right, it displays 3.3333. But when we do a float division b, it should display only the whole number part, discarding the decimal. So in this case, it should display value 3. So let's run this code. If you see here, it displayed value 3 correctly on the output screen. Now let's try modulo division. A percentage b. If I run this code, if you see here, a modulo division b, it returned value 1. So when we do this modulo division operator, right, it will perform the division and it will return the remainder of that operation. Now let's understand what an expression means in Python. An expression is any valid combination of variables, literals, and operators that produces a value. Here in this example, right, a equals to 10. Again, this is an expression, and then we have b equals to 3. This is another expression. Now, if I write right, like c equals to a plus b, this is an expression too. So expression is any valid combination of variables, literals, and operators that produces a value. So basically, whenever Python evaluates something to produce a value, that is an expression. So that is a quick and clear overview of operators and expressions in Python. In the next section, we will move on to conditional statements like if, else, and elif, which are used to make decisions in your program. Stay tuned. Now, let's understand what a conditional statement is. In Python, conditional statements are used to execute a block of code only when a specific condition is true. We tell the compiler, hey, only run these instructions if the condition holds true. If it doesn't, skip them. This is exactly what conditional statements allow us to do. To demonstrate this, I will create a new Python file called 03 underscore conditional statement dot py. Let's begin by understanding the syntax of a basic conditional statement using the if keyword. If expression double quotes, in the next line we'll have statements. Here expression is any condition that evaluates to true or false. The colon is mandatory. The next line must be indented, usually a tab or four spaces. Under the if, we place the statements we want to execute when the condition is true. Now, let's say I declare a variable a and assign value 10 to it. And I type if a is less than 20, colon, in the next line, print within double quotes, value of a is less than 20. I'll save this program code. Here, Python assigns the value 10 to a variable a. It then evaluates the expression a less than 20, that is 10 less than 20, which is true. Since the condition is true, it executes the print statement. So the output will be value of a is less than 20. Let me run it and check. If you see here, it correctly displayed the text on the output screen. Now, let's change the value of a to 30. 30 less than 20 is false. So Python skips the print statement and nothing is displayed. Let's run the code. If you see here, the output is blank. Now, what if we want to show a default message when the condition is false? We can use the else keyword. To do that, I'll go here and type else followed by colon, and in the next line I will type print value of a is not less than 20 and save the file. In this case, since the value of a, that is 30 less than 20, is false, the else block is executed. The compiler will first check if value of a is less than 20. If true, it will execute this line of code. If false, it will execute the else part. In this case, the program should execute the else part. Let's run this code and check the output. If you see here, the program correctly executed the print statement from the else part. Now, what if we have multiple conditions to check? In that case, we will use elif keyword. I will update this code. I'll go here and press enter and type elif a less than 50 colon. In the next line, I will type print value of a is less than 50 but greater than 20, greater than or equal to 20. Let's walk through this code. In this case, a equals to 30. The program will first check this condition, a less than 20, that is 30 less than 20, which is false. It will then check this second condition. If this is false, it will check the second condition, a less than 20, that is 30 less than 20, which is true. Since it is true, this line of code will be executed and it will exit this if condition. So it will print value of a is less than 50 but greater than or equal to 20. Let's run this code. If you see here, this program correctly displayed the output. Now let's try with a equals to 100. I will make a change in this printf statement as well. Okay. In this case, right, the program will first check this condition, a less than 20. In this case, 100 less than 20, which is false. Therefore, Python will skip this line of code. It will then check the second condition, a less than 50, that is 100 less than 50, which is again false. So it will run the else block and display value of a is 50 or more on the output screen. Now let's run this code and check the output. If you see here, this program correctly displayed the output on the screen. So here is the summary. Use if for a basic condition checking. Use else for a fallback when the if condition is false. and use elif to add more conditional branches. This is how conditional statements work in Python. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section. And if you are getting value out of this video, please support me by clicking the like and subscribe button. In the next section, we will dive into loops in Python, including the for loop and while loop. So stay tuned. Now, let's talk about loops in Python. So what exactly are loops used for? Loops are used to repeat a specific set of statements multiple times. Python provides two main types of loops, for loop, while loop. Both allow us to execute the code repeatedly, but they are used in slightly different scenarios. Let's start with for loop. I will create a new Python file called 04 underscore loops.py. The for loop is used when you want to repeat a certain set of statements a specific number of times. Here is an example. For I in range 5 colon in the next line, I will type print display. Here we are using the range function which generates 5 values, that is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. For each of these values, the print statement will be executed once. So when we run this for loop, the word display will be printed 5 times. Let's run it. If you see here, the word display got displayed 5 times. Here, I is a loop variable. On each iteration, it takes one value from the range result. If we want to see what values are being generated, we can print I. Let's do that. I'll go to the next line and type for I in range 5 colon in the next line print I. Let's run it. If you see here, it correctly displayed 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4 on the output screen. Now, if I change this value from range 5 to range 10, it will print the numbers from 0 to 9. Let's try it out. I'll execute the code, and if you see here, it correctly displayed value 0 to 9. Now, instead of using range, we can also iterate over a list. Let's try it out. For I in 1, 4, 6 colon in the next line, I'll print list value colon comma I and save the file. I will talk more about list in the upcoming video, so make sure you subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so that you don't miss it. Now I will run this code. Now if you see here, this program correctly displayed 1, 4 and 6 on the output screen. Now let's calculate the sum of numbers from 0 to 4 using for loop. I'll write a simple code here. First, I'll declare a variable named total and assign value 0 to it. And in the next line, I will use for loop for I in range 5 colon. In the next line, I'll type total equals to total plus I. And in the just a second. Yep. And in the next line, I will do print total. So if you see here, I am printing this value outside of the for loop. So here is what's happening. First, the value 0 will be assigned to variable total, and on each loop we add the current value of I to total. So after the loop, variable total will contain the sum of 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, which is equal to 10. Let's run the code. If you see here, this program correctly displayed value 10 on the output screen. Now, let's say you want to stop the loop early. For example, you want only the sum of 0, 1 and 2. You can use the break statement in that case. This is how it will work. I will go inside the for loop and I'll add a if condition. If I is greater than 2, I will say break. Here is how this works. The loop starts with I equals to 0, 1 and 2, which are all less than or equal to 2. When I becomes 3, the condition I greater than 2 becomes true. So this line of code, break statement, will be executed. And when it executes the break statement, it breaks the loop. the control will be transferred outside of the for loop and this line of code will be executed and it should print the total of 0, 1 and 2 which is equal to 3. Let's run the code and see how exactly it works. If you see here, this program correctly displayed value 3 on the output screen. Now, let's talk about the while loop. Just like the for loop, the while loop also allows us to repeat a set of instructions. But instead of fixed number of times, it continues as long as the condition is true. Here is an example. I'll go to the next line and type sum equals to 0. In the next line, while sum is less than 5, colon, I will type sum equals to sum plus 1. And then outside of this while loop, I will simply display the value of sum. Here is what happens. We start with sum equals to 0. The loop checks if sum is less than 5, which is true. So it enters the loop. It will perform sum equals to sum plus 1. It adds 1 to sum each time. Once the sum becomes 5, the condition sum less than 5 becomes false and the loop exits. When this condition becomes false, the control will be transferred outside of the while loop and the print statement will be executed. And in this case, this program will display 5 on the output screen. So if I run this program, value 5 got correctly displayed on the output screen. Here is the summary. You should use for loops when you know how many times you want to repeat the loop. Use while loops when the number of repetitions depends on a condition. You can use break to exit a loop early. This is all you need to know about for loop and while loop. In the next section, I will talk about strings and commonly used string functions in Python. And if you are getting value out of this video, I request you to support me by clicking on like and subscribe button. Let's understand what strings are in Python. Before that, I will create a new file called 05 underscore strings.py. So what are strings? In Python, a string is a sequence of characters enclosed in quotes. You can use single quotes, double quotes, or triple quotes for multi-line strings. Let's look at some examples. Name equals to Keith. Here I am using double quotes. Greeting equals to hello. Here I am using single quotes to define a string, and then we can define multi-line paragraph using triple quotes. So I'll type paragraph equals to within triple quotes. This is a multi-line string. All of these are strings in Python. Why do we use strings? Strings are used to store text or any group of characters. One important thing, strings are immutable. That means once created, they can't be changed. You can access individual characters using indexing, but you cannot change them using the same index. This is what immutability means. Let's understand this with help of example. Now we have this variable called name and we have assigned this string to the variable name. Now if I try to print the first index, that is name at index 0, it should display value k on the output screen. So if I run this code, it will correctly display value k on the output screen. Now let's try changing the character at index 0. I'll type name at index 0 equals to, let's say, b. Now if I try to run this code, sorry, if I try to run this code, it will display an error. Why? Because strings are immutable. We can only access individual characters using indexing. But if we try to change the character using the same index, it will throw an error. Now, let's look at some commonly used string functions. The first function we have is lower. Now, this function converts all characters to lowercase. Let's try it out. Text equals to hello in uppercase. Now if I do print text dot lower, it should display all the characters in lowercase. Now let's run this code. If you see here, this function converted all the characters into lowercase and displayed it on the screen. Now let's try one more, upper function. Now this function will convert all the characters to uppercase. Let's write out text equals to hello. In the next line I will type print text dot upper, and if I run the code it should display all the characters in the uppercase. Then we have strip. This function will remove all the leading and trailing spaces from the text. So let's say I have one text starting with space. There is a space in this text ending with space. Now if I do print text dot strip, it should remove all the leading and trailing spaces, and it should display the text on the output screen. So if I run this code, if you see here, it removed all the leading and trailing spaces. Now let's try replace text equals to I love apples. Now if I do print text dot replace, I'll say apples, replace apples with oranges. If I do this, it will replace apples with oranges. And if I run this code, the text I love oranges should be displayed. If you see here, this line of code correctly replaced apples with oranges. Now let's try split. Text equals to apple comma banana comma cherry. And if I do print text dot split, and I want it to split on the basis of comma. So what it will do is it will split the string into a list using comma as a separator. So if I run this code, it will create a list out of this text. So it will split based on the comma, and it will add all those values in a list, and it will return a list. Now let's try find. Let's say text equals to hello. In the next line, I will type print text dot find, and within double quotes I will say e. So what this function will do is it will return the index of the first occurrence of e, and if the index is not found it will return -1. So in this case, right, e is found at index 1, so it should display value 1 on the output screen. So if I run this code, it correctly displayed value 1. So let's say if I try to say find something which is not present here, let's say I try to find r and run the code, it should display -1 on the output screen. Now let's try the most commonly used string function, len. So this function, right, it returns the number of characters in the string. So let's try it out. Text equals to hello again, and in the next line I will type length of text. So here in this string we have 5 characters. So this print statement should display value 5 on the output screen. So if you see here, it correctly displayed value 5 on the output screen. Now there are two more that we will be trying out. One is starts with. So this function will check if the string starts with a specific character or set of characters. If it starts with that, whatever we enter in the function as a parameter, it will return true or else it will return false. So let's try it out. Text equals to Python is fun. In the next line, I will type print text dot starts with, let's say I want to check whether it starts with Python. If I run it, it should return a boolean value true if it starts with Python. In this case it is starting with Python, so it should return boolean value true. And if you see here, it correctly returned boolean value true. Now let's say I change this to Java and run it, it correctly returned false because it does not starts with Java. And then we have one more, ends with. Text equals to example.txt. In the next line I will do type text dot ends with, within double quotes dot text. .txt. Now in this case, what it will do is it will check if the string ends with .txt. If yes, then it will return true. If no, it will return false. In this case, it does end with .txt, so it should return value true. So if I run this code, it correctly displayed value true on the output screen. So that's a quick overview of what strings are, how they work, and the most commonly used string functions in Python. And if you have any questions, right, feel free to post them in the comments. And if you got value from this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more Python tutorials like this. Thank you.